Hi, Nuxt Nation. Great to see you. Today, we're going to be talking about Nuxt Content, the ultimate tool for blogging and documentation. We use it literally for everything. Uh, we are we use it for documentation sites, we use it for landing pages, and we're going to do a quick overview of Nuxt Content, kind of like what it provides, the ways you can use it, and then at the end, I'll do a small demo of a site that we already have built using Nuxt Content so you can see how it's structured, and I'll be able to answer any questions. It's a smaller module with a lot of power. So who am I? I am a full stack developer at 521 Dimensions, which is our client-facing software company. We touch a lot of different frameworks. We use Nuxt a lot for our documentation, and we use a variety of other tools as well. But I also contribute as an open source developer with server side up. So that's our, if you've probably seen anything on the internet, it's probably from server side up. We do a lot of blogging. We do a lot of open source tools. We even build some SaaS products. And it's really like a passion for what we do too. It really expresses what we have, and almost all of our open source sites that we have running on server side up use Nuxt Content, and hopefully within the next couple months, server side up itself will be using Nuxt Content. It's a much bigger site that's been around for 15 years, and it just requires a little bit more transition, but we're excited to get it taken care of. Also, I'm a coffee enthusiast, like a big time coffee enthusiast. So while I'm coding, I always try to find something rare and unique that I can enjoy, kind of like sparks my creativity. One of the apps that we built using Nuxt is a coffee finder, but we'll leave that by the wayside for now and focus more on Nuxt Content. Okay, so Nuxt Content, let's dive in. What is Nuxt Content? It's an officially supported Nuxt module. So what you can get with that is it's supported by the Nuxt team. You know, it's well designed. It's going to work with your Nuxt install. It's going to have great documentation, great developer experience, and great support throughout the Nuxt Content version 1 all the way up to version 2, in which I hear version 3 is coming out, which I'm excited to watch the talk on tomorrow. Everything that Nuxt Content has available is easily documented. So what it does is Nuxt Content, the module, adds a content data layer. So it allows you to write content in Markdown, use YAML for front matter, which we'll dive into soon, to help describe your content, and parse other normal, easier to read formats from the content directory within your Nuxt install. So when you install Nuxt Content, you'll get a content directory, and you can have that directory drive the URL structure and how your Nuxt Content install works. And there's two ways to use Nuxt Content within your Nuxt install: as a standalone or just module as a part of a greater app, or as a document, what's called document-driven mode, which relies heavily on the form of your content. So how we use Nuxt Content. We use Nuxt Content, like I mentioned, for all of our marketing and documentation sites for server side up. These are 3 of the examples that we have running live that you can visit right now that are using Nuxt Content. Bugflow is a SaaS product, and that's what we'll be using at the end to kind of go through how we do marketing with Nuxt Content. It's a little bit more complicated than some of the other open source documentation sites that we have. The GetSpin Pro is a simpler version. It's a landing page for a server hosting or a quick server management platform that we run. And then we also have Financial Freedom, which is an open source app, also using Nuxt Content. There's a little more style on the homepage of that. So I just wanted to show these 3 examples because that also shows the power of Nuxt Content. When you're designing your site, you have full control over the style. You can either use the style that was provided by Nuxt, their theme, or you can totally run with it and do whatever you think is best. But I mentioned earlier, there are 2 modes to install to use Nuxt Content: document-driven mode and a quote unquote in-app install, which is like another module, a part of your Nuxt app. So if you want one code base that contains your functionality, that contains your your app, your authentication, everything that goes with the app, and also your marketing site, you can install Nuxt Content to work right along with that, and you can run it all from one code base. Or you can do document-driven mode. So document-driven mode is where we tend to, what we tend to use the most. It really revolves around the structure of your content. And you can then just start writing content. It live upload or updates in the preview, and you can see how it works. I mean, both of them will live update, but like when you're doing the document-driven mode, it's really when you structure your content, you're structuring your site. It's pretty cool, and that's what I almost want to focus on a little bit. So document-driven mode, like I mentioned, is built around your content. The content directory determines the structure of your site. If you nest a folder underneath another folder, you're going to have a URL that's going to be your markdown file. You can organize your markdown files in certain ways that, like, if you put a 1 in front of it, it'll appear first in your in your listing. You can query based off of different front matter. It's pretty awesome to use. Makes heavy use of markdown components. So when you're doing a document-driven site, you can design a layout which is like a standard format, like maybe your article or maybe your blog post has a certain layout, or maybe a listing has a certain layout. But you can also embed functionality into your content using markdown components. I'll give an example, and then I'll show some at the end of how markdown components work. And the last major point of document-driven mode is it's pretty much just you write the content and it renders as you write, which is pretty impressive. It just makes for a really smooth experience and helps you focus on the content without having to worry about all these little intricacies to make it work. So that's one of the big reasons why we're moving server side up, which is on WordPress right now, the main blog, to Nuxt Content, because we can quickly generate content without having to worry about all these other settings. With the module install, you like to think of it as more of like a piece to a bigger puzzle. You get a little bit of control over, like, which queries you can run. You can run certain queries to get the content you want in the order that you want it. It's more flexible in some ways. You can like incorporate content pieces into your app as well, which is pretty slick. And you can make use of the predefined components such as content doc and the content renderer, which we'll touch on here soon. And those are super helpful components provided by the Nuxt Content module. So when to use document-driven mode? To be honest, this is our preferred method. I like to think of the choice to use document-driven mode. You have like pretty much 3 great examples, and then anywhere where content is king. So documentation sites are great for document-driven mode. There's not a lot of user interaction. There's not a lot of things that you need to extend or maybe require authentication or maybe compute data. It's focused heavily around your content. Same with blogs. Blogs are they're meant to be focused on content. They can, you don't have to have too much functionality. You can add that functionality with markdown components when needed, but it's mainly focused on your content. And same with landing pages. You need a simple site with a couple pages that describe your product. The Nuxt Content module and document-driven mode is the way to go. So the rule of thumb is anywhere where content is king and you want to like quickly generate content and not worry about writing all your queries on every page or like making individual modules, document mode is the way to go. So let's kind of touch through a few of the main components of the Nuxt Content module, and when you understand these pieces, you'll be on your way. So when you're writing content using Nuxt Content module, you're probably parsing Markdown. Well, how do you extend data that you need? Like if you come from a WordPress background, there could be advanced custom fields where you add certain pieces of data that or metadata to your blog or documentation content. Well, Nuxt Content has you covered because you can do front matter. It's custom metadata, low code, and queryable. So when we look at this code, this is actual front matter from a blog post on our bug flow site. And all it is a bunch of metadata. All fields in here are queryable and dynamic. So when I'm writing front matter, which will end up being my piece of content, the front matter lives on top of your markdown file and is written in YAML, which is just yet another markup language. And who would have guessed? And when you write your content, your metadata in YAML, you can query that content, and you can also use it within any of the components where your page data is present. So we use a lot of querying on some of our other sites to order by like the updated at or the published at. One major component is the blog or the layout, which you can do a blog layout or you can do a documentation layout. This all just describes the content and how it should be displayed. In this example, we define our OG image explicitly, but there's another cool plugin that we always add, and I'll go through some of these plugins to help you really build out your Nuxt Content site that will generate that OG image. So when you look at like a front matter query and you're querying content, you can see right here, this is just a very simple way to do a query, and we're just sorting by the published at date. So look at the newest posts first. Super helpful that you can do that all within Nuxt Content. The query is really straightforward. It's very SQL type feel to it, and you don't have to worry about all the other little intricacies that come with other content management platforms. So within Nuxt Content, if you're going to add functionality to a piece of like Markdown, or say if you want like a contact form or a little tool built within your your content piece, you'd use a Markdown component. So Markdown components are actually Vue components, fully functional, that you can add all the functionality to integrate with Nuxt, to integrate with right in Vue, right within your content piece. I find these heavily used within document-driven mode, because it's one way, like if you're focusing solely on the content and outside of your layout and you want to add like a contact form right in the middle or a newsletter sign up of your content, or an example it will provide is a code panel which renders clean highlighted code, you would add a Markdown component. And the Markdown component also just adds the features of, it's a simple way to add, or a format to add the content or your component to your content. So if you take a look, this is our Vue component. So this is a code panel, and we use this in all of our documentation. And this allows us to provide code snippets. So it looks, if you're coming from Vue, this looks like a normal Vue component, something that you would use in Nuxt. But the interesting part is there's a content slot. So whatever you put into that content slot, your highlighted code will be rendered. So when we go into our actual piece of content, we are referencing our code panel component. We're giving it the properties, which if we jump back here, the label, you can see right here is your properties. We can pass that through YAML, and then in between our Markdown component, we have the actual content of or the code that we want to render. So when we go in and add this code snippet, it's a nice highlighted piece of code. We have all the Tailwind styles, which I took out because otherwise it'd be 100 lines of code. But we have nice, beautiful Tailwind styles that match the theming of our site, and we can quickly add it to our Markdown content. It's pretty slick on how this works. And once you get the hang of it, it really allows you to add some amazing functionality. Another piece I want to touch on is some of the provided components that you get when you install the Nuxt Content module. And these are pretty straightforward. It's just nice to know like what they have, kind of get exposed to it, and we'll show a little bit of these as well. So we have a content doc component. What this does is it shows the content at the URL provided. So if you structure your content and you have blog/hello world, this will query the hello world content from your Markdown file and render it within inside that component. We also have content list. So this will find all the content within a certain directory or within a certain structure. And it's great to build like navigation, or it's great to build like search results or indexes. You can just pass a bunch of data to the content list, and you can render it kind of like loop over and make a list of links. Next up, we have content query. So content query component is kind of unique. So there's two ways to query your content within Nuxt Content. One is using a composable, which is super helpful if you have like more user interaction. But you can also pass the content query. You can pass query parameters to the content query component and actually run all of your querying within the component itself. It's pretty slick. We use it for search results on one of our open source sites, where if the search results or the search query is present in the URL, we can pass that directly to the content query component and list over all the results. So how do you go live with Nuxt Content? There's two different types. And if you're familiar with Nuxt, there's also an SPA mode. When SPA is a single page app mode. As of Nuxt Content version 2, it's not recommended to use SPA mode because there's server-side rendering that happens with the actual content. So you want to either enable server-side rendering mode, or you can do static site generation. Static site generation will go through and render all of your routes and create one big static chunk of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and you can deploy it anywhere, Netlify, Vercel, or Cloudflare. Personally, we use Cloudflare, and we use it for all of our open source sites. What's great about Nuxt Content is there's a bunch of helpful modules that really just take your Nuxt Content install to the next level. We're going to touch on 3 of these, and then we'll jump over to a document-driven code demo. So the one I really recommend is the Nuxt OG image. It is amazing. It will automatically generate an OG image based on the parameters that you pass in, and they look gorgeous. So if you go to any of our sites, the OG images will be generated through this plugin. Supports all major sizes for social networks, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, and it has an amazing DevTools integration. So if you're using the Nuxt DevTools, which is awesome to begin with, the integration with the Nuxt OG image is even more incredible. You can preview the OG image right within your DevTools, see how it's generating, make any tweaks, and it's easily themable. You can literally style the OG image based off of the CSS and style that you want. You can add pictures and move them around, and it dynamically takes a header, the H1 tag or whatever you pass to it, and generates a nice OG image. It really is icing on the cake for Nuxt Content installs. Next, we have Nuxt Social Share. This is a really simple way to add social sharing links to all of your sites, all of the pages within your Nuxt Content site. They come themable, so you can pass along what you'd like the default share to be, and style it the way that matches your content, or you can use the predefined social links as they come with. And then finally, Nuxt Image, which is another first-party supported Nuxt module. What's great about this is you can easily host your images using your Nuxt Content install on CDN, so you can quickly optimize images so they load snappy. You can use multiple cloud providers. You can store them wherever you're comfortable with. You can easily make responsive image generation, so you're always loading the right image per the screen size. And what's wild is you can use future-proof your images. So if you're using WebP or any of these other kind of cutting edge, I guess it's not cutting edge these days, but any newer format that really speeds up your site, helps you get found by Google, Nuxt Image will help you do that. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into a quick document-driven code demo. And with this, we're going to just show a little bit of a live install of Nuxt content, where you can find code, and how we use it. And I'm not going to do this live because those never go right. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to close this, and I already have it fired up. So right now, you should see on the screen, I have Bugflow. Bugflow is our SaaS product that the entire marketing site on here is using Nuxt content. So with this, we have a couple different sections, and this shows the flexibility of Nuxt content. We have a blog section, we have a changelog section, and we have a documentation section. One thing I want to point out about like the documentation sections and the way that Nuxt content is loaded is you can put numbers before each of these, each of your markdown files, and that will be the order that they render when you query the content. So if we jump over to the help and documentation section, you can number your folder. So number 1 is getting started, and we have a nice component that loads that. Number 3, collecting feedback. And then we have integrations, community, and get help. So you can easily organize your content within Nuxt content by just using a numbering based system. You can also add, if you jump in here, you can see you're just writing markdown for how all of these features or all the content gets rendered. Is a nice, you just write it in markdown. There's no special like editor. It really makes it really easy to quickly generate content. And when you have a home page, this is a shorthand way of using your markdown components. So I have a couple markdown components on our home page, and this is completely document driven. So this is how I would just make one markdown page, one markdown piece of content, and include the markdown components in here. And I can style those components up here within the content section. So if we jump up to home, top, fold, and we do like global header, we can really nest these components and make them like beautiful Vue code, and then just quickly integrate them into your Nuxt content install. What's really awesome is this is Nuxt 2, and I've seen a little bit of the preview for Nuxt content version 2. Nuxt content version 3 is going to have a lot of really awesome functionality as well, which I can't wait to check out. Finally, the last thing I really want to touch on before we go to questions is you can have multiple layouts. So you can see within here we have a changelog layout, which is a kind of like an infinite scroll of all the different changelogs. But then the blog layout is slightly different. So you can load up your blog layout, and you can have these different layouts all set up and ready to go in your Nuxt content install. And when you go to your front matter, which we talked about, all you have to do is define the layout as blog. So that allows you to be really flexible with what you're doing with Nuxt content and really help shape the site based on how you want it to look, feel, flow, and function. With that, I really greatly appreciate the time, and if there's any questions, I would love to answer them.
There are definitely questions.
Okay.
Yay.
I'll do my best.
All right. First one. Will there ever be a point when hot reloading content in production will be possible? Or will it always need to rebuild the project when we need to update something?
So I don't know if version 3 is going to have it. We'll find a little bit more out tomorrow. Our flow is we always run a build server. So we always rebuild the project when you need to update something and deploys it to the production install. We do a static site generation. So anytime we do make a change and we hit deploy, our CI process will rebuild it. So that's just the way that we approach it. I don't know if hot reloading content will be possible.
Good to know. Thank you. What is the best way to I18N/localize Nuxt content?
I believe there's a module that helps support that as well. And that's from, if you go to Nuxt modules, you should be able to find one that will work within Nuxt content.
Sweet. Thank you. I'm curious, how Like, how would you handle version control and edits? Do clients edit the websites that you make and then have them Next Contents? Who edits these sites, and how do you manage Git and deployment?
That's a very good question. So there is a professional tool or a pro level tool called Nuxt Studio, which will help with this. For us being like a smaller team, we branch everything. Since Nuxt content is all in Markdown, we make a branch for a new post, make a branch for a new piece of content. We run it in a preview mode, and then okay, once that's all ready, then we merge it back into the main branch. So we can protect based off of branches, which may be a little bit challenging for larger teams, especially those that don't know like much about Git. For that, I'd probably recommend Nuxt Studio, which is the paid for product by the Nuxt team and gives you a GUI to manage everything.
Thank you. And another question on internationalization, on how to handle within Next Content for bilingual landing page, for example.
Let me see if I can pull up that module, but it's I believe the module will help do all the internationalization uh, support, even for landing pages and along with your content.
Okay, sweet. And then any plans about adding SPA support like in version 1 of Nuxt Content?
That one I don't have the answer to. I know that version 2 requires server-side rendering support, which I think is a good idea just because when you're dealing with content, you probably want it picked up by a search engine for the most part. With SPA support, it's not, you're not getting the pre-rendered content in the hands of a search engine easily. I don't know if version 3 will add SPA support, but I would guess that they wouldn't. Just a gut feeling.
Fair enough. Uh, if I use a component to composite a bunch of SVGs for a blog hero image, can I just point OG image or that component in front matter, and will it take care of rendering that?
So what we do is if you have a custom OG image and you like, if you have a composite, a bunch of SVGs for a blog hero and you want it to be a custom OG image, you can override the generated OG image on the page, even if you're using the OG image plugin. So on our homepage, like for Financial Freedom, which is one of our open source products, we have a special kind of like more marketing type fancy OG image that isn't generated by the OG image plugin, where all the data, like the content ones, are dynamically generated, and that allows us to like quickly change headers and change little like previews and not worry about making a whole new image for it. So you can definitely make your own custom image.
Sweet, thank you. Last question. Is it possible to use Nitro Server API to generate feed content into Next Content?
You can use the Nitro Server API for to do pre-rendering if you go into the right hooks, and I haven't used it to do any like generate content for Nuxt content, but you could definitely make that happen. I've used the Nitro Server API to send emails from a Nuxt content install, but never to generate, but I'm sure you could do that.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dan. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time.